Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? It's a Friday night showdown in Provo as the Cougars square off against Oklahoma State. Your home for the best coverage of Cougar football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It is JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Our show, as always, brought to you by the folks at G2G Bars. All natural ingredients and no preservatives. Give them a shot. If you're looking for that shot of protein and you don't want the stuff with all the preservatives and the weird stuff in it, get the all-natural. They're in the refrigerated section at Costco, Holiday Oil, Maverick, Associated Foods, and grocers near you in the refrigerated section. Like I said, go check it out. Let's kick off the hour. Here's what we always do with the cut. The most important story of the hour is, for this hour, BYU taking on Oklahoma State in the cold of Provo. Joining us is John Holcomb. Let's get to the cut right here.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
John Holcomb, Oklahoma State radio analyst for the Pokes, coming into Provo. John, this is going to be a cold. Have you seen the forecast? Because we're looking at it. That cold front rolls in tomorrow. No, on Thursday. It's only going to be like a day and a half. Everybody get used to this cold weather. On top of the altitude, all of that stuff, man. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. You're talking about stuff in the refrigerated section. Now you're talking about a forecast. And I can already tell you it's been pretty chilly around here for about the last 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, not weather-wise.
I know what you mean. So let's get into that, John. What's going on? We all thought that Oklahoma State was going to be contending, and it hasn't worked out that way. We saw them when Utah played down there a couple weeks ago. What is the issue with this team? We thought they were going to be so much better than they've showed.
Well, you go back to the Utah game, and the most glaring thing that stood out were two things. Alan Bowman, veteran quarterback, 7th season. Cam Rising did not play in that game for Utah. Wilson started and played well. But Alan Bowman, that was the first game where he really did not play well. You know, moving a little sideways in the pocket, throwing off his back foot, accuracy problems. And the Cowboys wanted to go fast in that game and use a lot of tempo on offense and try to force Utah into defending a lot of plays in what was the exact opposite of the weather we're going to have Friday night. It was in the mid-90s, and the turf temperature was way up there above 140 at one point. But, you know, if you can't pick up first downs, then you can't keep a defense on a field, and then all of a sudden it's really short possessions, and your defense is out there forever. And they couldn't stop Micah Bernard. So that was the beginning of a lot of issues there. Cowboys this season have had issues with running backs being able to pick up at least 150 yards. Not being able to stop the run consistently has been a big deal. And on that side of the ball, the one area that you could not afford to have injuries was linebacker. And you lost Colin Oliver in the comeback win over Arkansas, and you lost Nick Martin late in the game at Kansas State the week after the Utah game. And that's really put them behind the 8 ball.
If you look at this team, and obviously the steady presence that always has been Mike Gundy, and we always talk about how long his tenure is there and how much that like he has a culture, and I think we're all familiar with it here in Salt Lake because Kyle Whittingham has a very similar thing where it's like, hey, you adjust to us, you figure out our culture here, not the other way around. What's been Mike Gundy's situation this year? Because it feels like a weird spot that he's in. It's not that they have had moments where they haven't, he's just used to turning things around. At this point last year, it was like, okay, whatever glaring issues they had against, Southern Alabama, they figured it out by week 3. Why is it taking so long down there in Stillwater to figure it out this year for Mike Gundy?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I'll go back to the injuries on defense have not helped. But, one thing that they did last season, sitting there at 2-2 after a loss at Iowa State and had an off week and had Kansas State coming in on a Friday night after the off week, they made some changes to how they were trying to run the football. Less zone plays, less outside zone, and more of a gap scheme, and started pulling, guards and tackles, tight ends and guards, whatever. And that coincided with Ollie Gordon, who showed signs in that loss at Ames of starting to break out a little bit. And when they came back, then all of a sudden that clicked. And you guys know how much easier the game is when you can run the football and you can stop the run to a certain degree. And that's when Ollie started taking off. And it wasn't until, ironically, as we're sitting here talking about this, it really wasn't until BYU came to Stillwater on that messy weather night. BYU was the first team that had started to solve a little bit of what OSU was doing in the run game. And that's kind of carried over. It's sometimes offenses can get an upper hand, and it takes defenses on opposing teams a while to figure it out. But I think teams have done a much better job of figuring that out.
As you're prepping for this game against BYU now, what are your thoughts on the Cougars, and what are some areas where you think Oklahoma State can try to find an advantage?
That's a great question because what BYU, from what I've seen, you guys know this, they have come out with an aggressiveness that has not been reckless. It's just been, we're going to beat you up, and we're going to come after you, and we're going to put relentless pressure on the quarterback without having to blitz everybody. And, crazy stat, like the number of quarterback hurries the Cougars had last week against Arizona, at least OSU had been a very good pass-blocking team, but when your quarterback isn't playing at the level that you expected him to play, then it really doesn't matter that much because it may still be incompletions. So I see a very aggressive team who's figured out how to run the ball. I think Retzlaff looks very comfortable, and he has some targets to throw to. And I think that also you're catching a team. If you're OSU, you're catching a BYU team that has belief, that probably saw a few signs coming down the stretch last year, but obviously now it's easy to say because they're unbeaten. But I think they have belief, and I think that's the biggest thing that may be lacking with this OSU group right now. They've kind of been in a funk, and you start to lose that confidence in yourself. Can we really do what we did last year? Are we as good as everybody expected us to be? But in terms of finding an area where you may have an advantage, I do like Dejon Stribling because he's got size at receiver, and he's played a lot of football, and he's had a good season. But, if you know that Cowboys have struggled running the ball, then you can put extra attention defensively to a guy like Stribling and make it tough for him to be a player.
Have they figured out what the situation is at quarterback? Is Garrett Rangel going to get the start then?
Mike Gundy hasn't said. I know there are reports out there that he has not confirmed. I will say this, that if a change is made and there's a starting quarterback, I won't be that's not named Alan Bowman, I will not be surprised. Rangel has had 2 times in the last 3 games. He came in against Utah second half to start the second half because the offense was struggling, and part of it was field position, part of it was bad decisions. He did not look good at all. Then a second chance to get it done in the second half against West Virginia, he looked much better. But you guys know, you're down by multiple scores. Teams aren't going to blitz and give you opportunities for big plays, but he was still on target and still made some plays, and he's more mobile than Allen is. Allen's been a great leader for this offense, but, when he hasn't played well, then that is minimized.
Well, this is always fun for us to be able to chat with you. We've been able to do it a couple of times now, John. John Holcomb, Oklahoma State radio analyst. We're going to cut you loose here. We appreciate you taking some extra time for us this week. And have fun in Provo. We'll see you at the game.
Guys, I hope the heaters work in the box.
They do.
We'll have some Cougar Tales waiting for you.
Awesome. Sounds great.
There you go. John Holcomb.